Open your physical wallet right now and pull out a United States dollar bill. Look closely at the paper in your hand. What if I told you that the very currency you rely on to survive is currently the primary target of a covert, multi-front global war? You might not see the battle lines being drawn, but your bank account is taking the direct hits every single day. In January 2026, the United States dollar officially crashed to its lowest valuation in 4 years. This was not a random market fluctuation, and it was not a normal economic cycle. It is the direct and catastrophic consequence of the government aggressively weaponizing the global economy and pushing international trade to the absolute breaking point. Welcome back to Fiscal Forensicist. Today, we are launching a massive investigation into the 2026 global currency war. We are going to uncover how the administration's unprecedented tariff strategy has rapidly accelerated the BRICS de-dollarization movement, why the global rejection of the dollar mathematically guarantees massive domestic inflation for you, and exactly what you must do immediately to shield your wealth from this historic collapse. For decades, the United States dollar has reigned as the undisputed, untouchable king of global trade. It provided the American consumer with immense purchasing power and kept domestic inflation relatively stable. But the rules of the international game have recently been rewritten. The government began using trade policy not just for domestic economic protection, but as a blunt, aggressive geopolitical weapon to force other nations into submission. The escalation reached a boiling point on November 30th, 2024. On that day, the administration issued an unprecedented and hostile ultimatum to the world. The president explicitly threatened to impose devastating 100% tariffs on all BRICS nations if they attempted to create a new international currency or compete in any way with the United States dollar. Politicians believed this aggressive financial threat would guarantee American economic dominance and force developing nations to comply with Western demands. But the forensic economic evidence shows they drastically miscalculated the global blowback. Instead of submitting to the pressure, the rest of the world decided to accelerate their escape plan. The administration unleashed total trade chaos by pioneering a highly dangerous new economic tactic known as secondary tariffs. Unlike normal primary tariffs, which directly target a specific country for a specific trade imbalance, secondary tariffs are designed to penalize third-party nations just for doing business with America's geopolitical rivals. It is a system of international financial punishment. For example, on August 6, 2025, the United States ordered a punishing 25% secondary tariff on exports from India, pushing their total baseline tariff to a staggering 50%, simply to penalize them for purchasing Russian oil. By directly taxing sovereign nations for their independent trade agreements, the United States essentially forced developing economic powerhouses into a corner. The message to the globe was undeniably clear. If you use the dollar and participate in the Western financial system, your economy is entirely at the mercy of American political demands. The strategy of maximum pressure triggered an immediate and devastating global reaction. The BRICS economic bloc actively expanded and aggressively pushed for total de-dollarization. They began transitioning away from the United States dollar for international trade, choosing instead to settle massive cross-border transactions in their own local currencies. When the United States government collected a record-breaking $287 billion in customs duties in 2025, which was a massive 192% increase from the prior year, foreign nations realized that trading with America was becoming far too expensive and completely unpredictable. Instead of paying the administration's heavy toll, they started building a parallel economic universe. They hoarded gold, bypassed traditional banking networks, and actively worked to insulate themselves from American economic sanctions. The reckless use of emergency economic powers brought the global system to the brink of collapse. On April 2, 2025, a day the administration dubbed Liberation Day, the government invoked the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to impose a minimum 10% reciprocal tariff on nearly all countries. This sudden, aggressive move triggered immediate panic. The announcement led to a global market crash, with the Nasdaq Composite falling over 1,000 points, marking the largest point loss in its entire history. The bond market sold off massively in a scenario known as bond vigilantism. The administration was forced to temporarily pause some tariffs just to stop the bleeding, but the damage to international trust was already permanently done. The world saw that the United States was willing to burn down the global trading order to achieve its political goals. The terrifying reality for the American consumer is that the BRICS strategy of walking away from the dollar is actually working. The January 2026 collapse of the dollar index signals a massive, irreversible loss of international confidence. As international confidence evaporates, the BRICS nations successfully build alternative financial systems. The consequences are coming home to roost in the United States. You might be wondering, why does a rapidly falling dollar on the global stage actually matter to you and your family? Because it acts as a massive, unavoidable hidden tax on your daily survival. Economists widely recognize that inflation serves as a silent tax on currency holdings, redistributing purchasing power away from the working class. As the dollar weakens globally, every single imported product you buy becomes significantly more expensive to bring into the country. This dynamic mathematically guarantees a massive surge in domestic inflation. While politicians proudly claim they are protecting American manufacturing jobs through these tariffs, the undeniable forensic reality is that a weaker dollar makes foreign products drastically more expensive. This squeezes the middle class from both sides. The administration has repeatedly claimed that foreign countries are paying these tariffs and that the revenue could eventually replace the federal income tax. But this is a complete economic illusion. Leading economic experts and the Tax Foundation have deemed this idea mathematically impossible. A recent study by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York estimated that United States consumers and businesses shoulder up to 90% of the tariff costs, not the foreign exporters. You are the one paying the toll at the cash register. When fiat currencies are heavily manipulated to fund trade wars, the inevitable result is the devastating devaluation of your money's purchasing power. This leads to a loss of allocative efficiency in the market, meaning companies spend more time changing their prices to keep up with inflation, rather than innovating or raising wages. Even the highest levels of the United States judicial system recognized the extreme danger of this policy. In a historic and monumental ruling on February 20th, 2026, the United States Supreme Court intervened. The Supreme Court ruled in a 6-3 decision that the President's use of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to enact these sweeping global tariffs was completely illegal. The highest court in the land struck down the emergency taxes. But if you thought the stealth tax was finally over, you were dead wrong. Demonstrating an absolute addiction to tariff revenue, the administration bypassed the Supreme Court's decision within 24 hours. They immediately announced a brand new 15% global tariff under different national security trade laws. They proved that they will stop at nothing to keep the money flowing directly from your pocket to the federal treasury. We are witnessing the definitive end of a financial era. The interconnected global economy that provided cheap goods and low inflation for decades is being intentionally dismantled. As BRICS nations actively bypass the dollar and the United States continues to fight a multi-front currency war, wealth is being drained directly from the consumer. So, how do you protect yourself in a rapidly de-dollarizing world? You must drastically move away from the traditional mindset of saving cash. When the currency itself is being weaponized and devalued by the government, holding fiat money in a traditional bank account guarantees a massive loss of wealth over time. Your purchasing power is melting away like an ice cube in the sun. You must adapt your strategy right now. You must aggressively shift your capital into scarce, tangible assets that retain their fundamental value regardless of what happens to the United States dollar or global tariff policies. Look toward physical commodities, precious metals, and real estate. Furthermore, seek out multinational businesses that have unshakable domestic pricing power and the ability to generate revenue completely outside of the United States monetary system. You cannot sit on the sidelines while the greatest wealth transfer in modern history takes place. Hit the subscribe button to join the Fiscal Forensicist community. We relentlessly dissect the economic data so you don't become a victim of the system. Do you think the dollar is going to collapse by 2030? I mean, look at what's happening right now. Countries are dumping US debt at record levels. China and Russia are trading in their own currencies. The BRICS nations are literally building an alternative to the dollar-based system. But here's the thing. America still controls the biggest military, the most powerful financial institutions, and they're not giving up without a fight. So let me know in the comments below. Do you think the United States dollar will completely lose its status as the world reserve currency by the end of the decade? Or will the government's aggressive tactics force the world to comply? Stay sharp, stay informed, and stay financially secure.